Remember when we'd sit by the fire and exchange scary stories? Now the only ghosts we're dealing with are from our past. Speaking of ghosts and dealing with them, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! Yes, folks, they're back again. After making a successful return in 2021 with Ghostbusters Afterlife. The franchise is in process of making another comeback with the upcoming sequel, Ghostbusters Afterlife 2, which will release in December this year. It seems that Gil Kenan, who helped co-write Afterlife with director Jason Reitman, is now back for the sequel. Except for this time, he's in the big director chair, while Jason will take a back seat as co-writer and producer. Gil has worked on horror film projects in the past, and his debut animated film Monster House was a big hit with the audiences and critics. So much so that he was nominated for an Oscar. Another popular film of his was the remake of Poltergeist, which didn't exactly live up to the original. So there's that. But Afterlife was a success. It's exciting to see in what direction he'll take the movie. Because here's the thing, right? He's the boss now. He told Deadline that he feels it's an absolute honor to pick up the proton bag and step behind the camera for the next chapter. He also said that he wished he'd just go back to 1984 and tell his young self that one day he'll be given the chance to direct a Ghostbusters film. Now that must be an amazing feeling. I just want to tell you guys, I pretended to be a part of the ghost hunting squad as a kid. I bet we all did. These guys were insanely popular, and even now, they feel like a connection to much simpler days. So can't deny that this is a huge opportunity for Kenan for sure. According to the reports, the story of the sequel revolves around the Spengler family, but this time, they're going to be in New York City. New York City? We all saw the old Ghostbusters firehouse headquarters in the post-credit scene. And given that the working title of the film is also Firehouse, I think it's safe to assume that the film will work as a revival, and this nostalgia is the best way to drag the fans in. But if the grapevine is to be believed, there's talk about revamping an old villain, and it's none other than Vigo the Carpathian. Since Afterlife already brought back some of the old characters from the previous films, like Gozer, we're not so sure the same strategy would work this time around. Like, the fans want something new, and it's pretty obvious that a new and solid villain needs to appear to take the movie to a whole new level. Don't y'all agree? As for the cast, I'm sure we're all rooting for Paul Rudd to be back. And excitingly enough, insiders say that they've gotten wind that he and Carrie Coon will be back in action for the second film as well. Woohoo! Oh, and there's more. It's been confirmed that McKenna Grace will be back to play the role of Egon Spengler's granddaughter. We'll probably be seeing more of Ernie Hudson, playing the role of Winston Zeddemore. He has mentioned that he got a version of the script and has good things to say about it. So I think that Winston's character might revolve around supporting the Spengler family setup in New York, or asking them to help fight against a new evil spirit. We all saw the ghost containment unit blinking in the post-credit scene. We'll just have to wait and see how well Gil will take up his new role as director, and how well he can guide the cast to bring his vision to life. To be honest, there's so much more nostalgia involved. So, guess what we're gonna do? Yep, you're right. We're gonna take a trip down memory lane. It's clear that the Ghostbusters franchise has had its ups and downs. An interesting fact is that the original cast was not interested in doing another film after the release of the first film in 1984. Can you believe it? Who'd have thought that, given the tremendous success it received at the time? But we gotta say that the original cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters, is what has truly kept it alive. That and advertising. Until they were finally able to find a willing director, Ivan Reitman, and the cast to agree for Ghostbusters 2. But much to our horror, the movie was not well received by the audience and the critics. Some blamed the long 5-year gap between the original film and the new one, and some criticized its lack of originality. It set the franchise years back, and Bill Murray, playing the main character Peter Venkman in the movie, did not hide his displeasure. Since the guy was opposed to doing any further films in the first place. The third movie, Ghostbusters: Answer the Call, was supposed to be an all-female team, with Paul Feig as the director. But this received a lot of backlash, and ended up being a box office flop. The franchise later decided to release Ghostbusters: Afterlife, essentially being the third movie that focused on the next generation, particularly Egon's grandchildren. And you just won't be able to guess what happened. They uncovered their grandfather's ghost-busting past. And you best believe that this worked like magic with the audiences. The movie did an impeccable job at connecting the new generation to the old in appearance and also a little bit in personality. The writers came up with a strong background for the story, and it does seem that they learned all this from the flaws highlighted by the critics when Star Wars: Force Awakens was released. There were also hints in the post-credit scenes that the franchise will be making more Ghostbuster films in the future. And personally speaking, rather than reusing the same old movies for reference and selling nostalgia, I'd like to see new areas and stories being explored. I think we can all agree that doing so has already set up the franchise for failure in the past, as history clearly shows, and it's better to learn than to repeat the same mistake. One of the legacy characters that can be worth looking into is John Tobin, the man behind the book Tobin's Spirit Guide. This character has been explored in the past in the IDW comic series and spin-offs, and would be very fascinating to uncover. His guide is basically an encyclopedia of all the supernatural entities, cults, and spirits. Now that's spooky, but also so interesting, no? The guide has been mentioned several times in all the films. Whenever the Ghostbusters need information on the threats they face, the guide would be their go-to. What would we not do to get our hands on such a thing? There are so many angles that can be explored with this one, and it can be a huge hit if done right. The franchise could build up on the fan theories out there, like Tobin's character being a Ghostbuster himself, and having had encounters with the spirits. I mean, who doesn't love all the spooky, horror, and spine-chilling tales? A prequel like that will have people running to the cinemas. Y'all can count on that. At the end of the day, though, it all boils down to whether the franchise and the movie producers listen to the audience. They'd need to keep the originality, but also bring something new to the table to build on the success. And we do think that they've got an uphill battle on their hands, but for now, all we can do is just sit tight and hope for the best. That's all the news we had for now. We'll be back with more updates as they're revealed. See you next time.